right, everyone, welcome to Brothers and Boss Battles, a video game showdown. Today we're having our Brodown episode in our category of games that initially released on the Sega Dreamcast. All right, today we're discussing Shenmue, Resident Evil Code Veronica, and Sonic Adventure. We're going to have a battle today as these three games go up against each other, and we're going to pick which one should come out on top and a runner-up. We have selected a number of categories in which to compare these three games, and with that, we will begin.
Fight!
All right, guys. We played three games that released on the Sega Dreamcast. We're gonna compare them now. Should we start with our first category and jump right in?
Yes, please.
All right. Let's talk about the controls of these three games. I think out of all of our Brodowns, before we begin, this might be, I don't want to say the fairest, but the fairest of them all. But I don't want to say the fairest but along those lines, these three games all released within like a year of each other. In Shenmue and Code Veronica the same year. So, so I think it'll be
same console, like same hardware. So
right. So we're gonna, choose some categories that we may not have done on others when you're comparing like a Sega Genesis game and a PlayStation 3 game, or something along those lines. So, we're gonna get right into it. And I'd also just like to note that we will be talking about the story, and there might be story elements that pop up. So here is your spoiler warning for these three games. If you haven't played them, we might discuss some of the story here, and that might be something you don't want to hear. So just so you know, you have been warned. All right, let's jump into the controls discussion of these three games.
They were all pretty bad, I think. not so bad, but they all had their issues.
Yeah.
What were the issues in Sonic?
I feel like that had the most issues as far as controls are concerned, at least for me. I mean,
yeah. I mean, there were times where, I don't know, you would go to do an attack and I don't know, I just didn't like. I still don't buy the whole mistiming the homing attack thing. I think that was a control issue.
Talk about that.
What was it doing? It was not responding to your button press, or
no, it just wasn't performing the attack as it was supposed to.
And
I'm not sure about that. It's not a homing, like 100% perfect homing type of an attack. That was my
yeah,
impression.
but when the enemy's right in front of you, it should land. I feel like that's a control issue.
Okay.
And then we talked about in Sonic Adventure the whole, that the characters seem in some instances too fast for the space they were given to run. Where you might fall right off of a cliff or something.
In those Sonic levels, I was constantly getting caught up on walls and you would just you'd be running full speed, you would hit a wall and just complete stop, and then
I don't know if that's control issues as much as the level design maybe, but I felt like it was going the direction that I was intending to be moving.
Yeah, I had mentioned in the Sonic Adventure episode too that in the Tails level, I had sort of run into some trouble with in the level where you have to go through a bunch of those rings, the Skyview level. Sometimes shooting at the end of it, trying to then glide and holding the button to glide, it just would not do so. And it would fall right off. So I don't know. I had some problems with that game as far as controls.
I feel like typically when we discuss controls, we also bring in the camera angles as a related topic. And we noted during the episode that there were some issues with that in Sonic.
Yeah, there were.
You're bringing up some good points. And I think just because the game was so easy, maybe I'm not I didn't harp on these, or it didn't really bother me. Just because, I have to try to remove from the analysis, but.
Yeah, you're talking about gameplay there.
Yeah. But I don't know, to me, the most notable control gripe that I have with any of these three games was just walking around in Shenmue. It was really like choppy and blocky, and it was just hard to maneuver around, especially when you were inside.
Sometimes I felt like Rio was like driving, controlling him was like driving a car.
Driving a forklift.
Not even a car. To me, it was like a robot that can only move in four directions. Is what
Well,
because like sometimes I felt like when he was moving like to the left and right, like just he wouldn't be able to make like a sharp turn really. It would just be like kind of like veering.
well,
yeah,
he
yeah,
would have to turn his whole body. It was like it really wasn't tank controls, but it was sort of that concept, where it's like you're not necessarily you can't move your head,
yeah,
so
yeah.
the flow of movement is not like a normal
Yeah, you had
person's.
to like turn your whole body to face
Yeah.
different direction.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, I mean that was Resident Evil Code Veronica, which kind of stayed in the vein of those older and predecessor Resident Evil games. Uh, but that to me lent to its charm.
I feel like in that game because they had the fixed camera angles, the the tank controls, they didn't feel as bad
In what game?
in Code Veronica.
Oh,
I agree. And in that game, you really require more quicker and precise movements than you do in Shenmue. And I was much more frustrated by the controls in Shenmue.
yeah. I mean, I guess to your point about Sonic, like I didn't like the Shenmue controls, even if they were a little bit wonky at times, didn't seem as important as in the other two games. So, and I'm not really
Yeah,
saying it as an easiness factor. It's just like
yeah, it's a
movement.
different kind of challenge. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, with Shenmue, I mean, other things with the controls. I mean, a lot of or part of that game are quick time events, which I feel is pretty controller intensive. Those were tough, but they weren't unfair. So, I mean, I feel like the inputs worked when done properly. It's just that, you needed pretty quick reactions in some instances.
Yes, the buttons on the controller worked in that game,
Yeah.
as in all of the games.
No, not Sonic Adventure.
yeah.
It's
Sometimes
not
you would
that
try to glide and you would just fall right off.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
but
You
it's not that
press
the
the
buttons
button.
aren't working.
So anyway, I
All
mean,
right.
I give the controls, in my view, to Code Veronica first and Shenmue second, with Sonic Adventure last in for me.
I think I will agree with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it unanimous. I can't believe I'm saying that our old school Resident Evil game wins the
Yeah,
best controls category, but here we
it
are.
does here. All right. Next, we're going to discuss a category that we don't like to usually discuss because we play games from disparate eras a lot of the times and lump them into a category. But here, since all of the games released in either 1999 or 2000, and we're talking about the same console, we're going to do it. And we're going to talk graphics. Anyone have thoughts on this regarding these three games?
I will say when I turned on Sonic and played the first 10 minutes or whatever, there was like a sort of wow factor to me. The way it looked, and also maybe that's just because I'm used to Sega Genesis Sonic, and also just the speed of it. So I think I mentioned on the episode, like first level or two, I was like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. I didn't have that feeling with the other two games. It's not to say
Um,
those games were bad graphically, but
mm, well, I mean, it kind of can be split sort of into two. I mean, you have the cutscenes in these games and then sort of the gameplay graphics in these games. And I would say I think like Shenmue, the cutscenes, what I actually kind of liked is that the cutscenes and the gameplay scenes were very seamless. I mean, they almost seemed
Yeah,
exact.
there wasn't like they didn't improve the graphics in the cutscenes. It was the
Right.
same as when you're actually playing the game.
And
that was
yeah,
also true with Sonic, right?
no, Sonic, that opening like scene with the chaos water crushing through the buildings and all of that, that's all.
Maybe
And
that one.
I think the word that I want to use a cinematic, or that should be used as cinematic.
Yeah.
So like the cinematic scenes in Code Veronica, and at least in that opening scene of Sonic Adventure, were cinematics as opposed to. So those are very good, but it's just different than the gameplay uh, graphics, and I kind of liked how Shenmue was able to kind of keep that, because a lot of times they'll show off games with these cinematics, and then you play the game and the graphics aren't nearly as good. I mean, that's getting, I guess, less and less relevant now as graphics improve. But like back then, I mean, like Code
Yeah.
Veronica, that it looked very good, the cinematics, and then the graphics in the game are good for the time, but nothing, still blocky and sort of expressionless characters a lot of the times. But I do think you have a point. Sonic Adventure, I do think a lot of the other cutscenes were similar in vein to the gameplay graphics.
Yeah, which I don't know if
I
that's a
mean,
good thing or a bad thing, but
yeah, all the games have that. Like Code Veronica too, when like the scene where you first meet Alfred, or
Mhm.
that's that's not like it's using the same graphics as when you're playing the game, so there's no change there.
Oh yeah,
Um,
that's that one. But there were like the one where like you run into Wesker. That's like a cinematic more, right?
yeah, but it was using the same graphics from the game.
Hmm. I don't know. I guess I'm
The
also
only
thinking
ones were
of like there's one where,
like the intro with Claire when she
yeah, that's
shoots
a big one.
and
Also,
then
when
when you're flying
yeah,
when you're flying the helicopter to Antarctica.
also when Alexia sort of like comes out of the tube and all of that.
yeah. So anyway, I mean, I think I'm on the same page as you, Ant. But
But
what
anyway, I mean, we could, I guess,
we're saying
focus
it's
on the
enhanced.
game. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So something that I felt when I first started playing Sonic Adventure was like you start off playing a Sonic in that resort area or whatever. I guess it's like a hotel or something, but like by the pool there are like a couple of NPCs, and I felt like they looked really bad, like even like worse than the time.
Yeah. Yeah, the
um,
NPCs were bad in that game.
yeah, but like the characters themselves like were pretty
Yeah.
good, like the playable characters.
Hmm.
And the
Yeah.
environments were nice. It was nice and bright and colorful, which is like
Yeah.
really fitting for the game.
I felt Shenmue just felt very real. And I talked a lot about the realism um in Shenmue, and we discussed how Dobuita, the city you're in a lot of the game, is modeled directly on the real city of Dobuita, and it looks very much like it. Um, there's some obviously wonky expressions and sort of verbal ticks and stuff with the characters, but even that I feel was pretty impressive for the time, and we'll discuss that more with gameplay, I guess, and sound. But I I just felt the environment was so rich in Shenmue, so not even like focusing on the characters, but just the environment. To me, that one really stands out. I mean, Code Veronica was very good as well. We mentioned in the episode how it started using the like 3D backgrounds as opposed to the pre-rendered backgrounds, and how that was able to include some camera angle shifts that led to the creepiness factor, and they were able to do some interesting things with that. So that was certainly a positive there, and everything you said with Sonic.
so I want to go back to you where you were talking about the environment in Shenmue.
Hmm.
And again, we're discussing the graphics. What do you mean by that? Like, like there was weather, which was cool, but did the weather necessarily look great or anything? Like, it was
I mean,
fine.
I
You're
think it was
talking
cool.
about like,
Talking about like the buildings and the collection of the buildings, like the community that they were in. Um, particularly Debuita, but even the docks looked good. Inside the stores, I thought were cool, pretty, fairly detailed for the time. Restaurants and
yeah,
bars and
inside some of the stores. That's a good point. I think when you were walking on the main strip there, I don't think there was anything impressive graphically about what it looked.
well, what about just like how, I mean, it looks like it does in real life. I think just taking a city like that and putting it
I
into a
guess
game.
that's a good point. I guess. I guess that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think for the time it was, I think it was quite advanced graphically, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, and just like you said, like they put a lot of the amount of detail that they put into things was impressive. Even
All
like
right.
Rio, like you see like the veins in his hands and stuff,
hmm
like like that. That
yeah,
wasn't
we
Yeah.
something they were really doing in those days.
yeah, and we talked about how much that game cost to develop, and a lot of that had to do with some of the realism aspects, and part of that I think was the graphics and the environment and of the characters. I mean, I think Ryu and some of the other main characters look good. Some of the non-playables were not as good in some instances, but still pretty impressive.
I was thinking back to Sonic in some of those cutscenes, and I mentioned in the episode when like Eggman was like walking towards a door that they didn't want him to go in or whatever, and he was like almost like running in place, like,
Yeah.
and I feel like that happened a few times.
hmm
So like I don't know, but that turned me off a little.
Yeah. I think with the Tom used the phrase like weekend morning cartoon show or something, or Sunday morning cartoons. And I feel like a lot of the aspects in that game were like a lot of the scenes in that game were almost set up like there was going to be a commercial break. Like we talked about that one and the one where Sonic and Tails are like falling out of the sky in
Yeah,
their airplane. So I don't know. I think it fit for what it was. I just to me the graphic just to sort of wrap up this category if that but to me the realism of Shenmue kind of takes the cake here. The other two it's tough because they're completely different types of games and I do think that the graphics in Sonic were good for what it was and the graphics in Code Veronica were good for what it was. Um so it's hard for me to kind of distinguish between those two. I'd probably give the nod to Code Veronica just because the uh they had to create all these monsters that looked good and I think it was a little bit more complicated than what they had to do with Sonic.
yeah. For me, I think you convinced me. So I'll put Shenmue first, but then I would go Sonic and then Code Veronica.
Yeah, I think I would go with that too. Uh,
Which one?
Shenmue
Beat?
first. Yeah, yeah, Shenmue first, then Sonic, then Code Veronica. Yeah, Code Veronica. It's still like they still had those weird animations, for the characters when they talked, and even some things like the fire looked weird, and I don't know. Like I feel like they could have did a better job with that and stuff like
That's
that.
so
But
funny because the fire just popped up in my mind like a minute ago, and I was like, that didn't look that good.
yeah,
All right. Should we discuss music and sound next?
Yes.
All right.
So I'll start this category using when I
Someone
started the other
discuss it
one.
then.
Yeah. So like well, actually, maybe it'll be a little different, but when I first put on Sonic and was hearing the music, like I was like, oh yeah, this is good. So not just oh this is good, but like it kind of gets you like into the game, you know?
Yeah, it's very it's rocking the
If
intros.
that's a good word for it, yeah. But then also the intro, and I know we're not just talking about intro music here, but the intro to Resident Evil also kind of like did that for me too.
It was
Even
rocking.
though even though even though it was like some decibels too loud for some reason.
And even though the Shenmue intro wasn't rocking, it was pretty good and fit very well into the we talked about how we love that too. That sort of little flute ditty about not about anything, but that played in various parts of the game and when you open your journal. So
I
yeah,
like
the
the
music.
sounds too in Shenmue, like the buttons on the main menu when you.
Oh, bling, bling. Yeah, they
Yeah,
had
yeah,
cool sounds. I didn't do it justice.
yeah. Definitely not.
What about some of the voice acting?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Terrible on all accounts.
no,
No,
Yeah.
I would
no,
say I'd give
that's unfair.
Shenmue some credit by voicing basically any character in the game you could speak to, even if they just say, "Don't talk to me" or something like that. So I just think that was very impressive. We talked about how like the sound mixing for some of the Shenmue voices wasn't that great. They seemed to speak very loudly. Um, and they just had some corny lines, but the fact that everyone had something to say or could have something to say, I thought was very good.
Yeah, it's definitely cool.
It is, but it's very noticeable about like you said you called it sound mixing, like when someone was yelling at you and they're right next to you, and it's throughout the whole game too.
Yeah. I mean, Code Veronica had its, usual sort of Resident Evil dialogue. I guess maybe not as corny as prior games, but it was still weird in some instances, particularly with Steve. And we talked about Steve's whiny voice and how just how notable that was.
But his voice wasn't as whiny as Fukusan,
Fukusan
in
was
my
better though.
opinion. Fukusan was
But
better, you thought?
Better, yeah, much better.
yeah, Steve is notably like bad in Code Veronica lore or Resident Evil lore rather. Then you have Sonic Adventure. We discussed in that episode about a
Yeah,
lot of
pretty
the
good
characters
detail.
were good, and but there was a few like Knuckles that felt like he was reading off the script.
Yeah, I had a lower opinion than you guys did on the voice acting in Sonic, I think. So what
Yeah.
about some sounds and stuff? If unless
No. Yeah, sounds. I mean, I think they were all pretty good. I like in Sonic, the classic Sonic sounds with collecting rings and bouncing off bumpers and, you know, taking damage. Those all sounded good.
in Resident Evil, did you feel the zombies or the monsters were particularly scary sounding? I didn't really remember that. I didn't feel like they were.
I mean, those older games did not do as good a job as new horror and survival horror games of making you feel scared. I don't think. I think it's a combo of a lot of things, not just the sound, but like the
Yeah, but
atmosphere and the
just talking about the
graphics.
sound though.
Yeah, I mean, I guess no, but like,
Good, you fell into my trap.
yeah,
No.
Yeah, I mean, they had the classic zombie shuffling sound. So, like, you always know they're there. The Bandersnatches, I don't think really made too much noise.
I don't think so.
And the Hunters, they didn't really make noise until well, you could hear
Slice
them,
you.
like, yeah, you could hear them, like, running, basically. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I
I
do
mean,
like the footstep sounds in the Resident Evil, just
mm,
historically. Like,
of
you know,
like
the
your
more,
character, or
yeah, and like when you're walking over a different piece of, floor or
yeah,
grass or whatever, that the sound changes. So
that was impressive. Yeah, that's always been cool.
Yeah. For me, Resident Evils did definitely last.
I think so.
yeah, there was nothing that really like stood out as great.
Yeah.
We pointed out how they have like, it had sort of that old European feel and how it had like some opera parts in the music and sound and that intro was cool. But I mean, this is a situation where you kind of have, at least in this category, three, I think, positive opinions in my opinion of the for these sounds so and music so but I think you're right. I think Sonic had all the iconic sounds and then cool intro, and I like Tails like theme when he was flying his airplane. um and then Shenmue had a lot of cool sounds as well. I mean, we mentioned the time you save Nozomi, and there's sort of like that power ballad on it when you're riding on the motorcycle. That's pretty cool. And then the flute music, the more cultural sounding music were all really good and fitting. So I think you're right with Code Veronica coming in last there.
I'm gonna put Sonic first, just because of the music. I really, really like the music in that game.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably do that too with Shenmue quickly following right behind in the second place, just for like cool sounds and voicing everyone, and having a pretty wide array of voices and conversational pieces.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it unanimous. It's close between those two, but yeah, slight nod goes to Sonic.
Hmm. All right. Now, do you want to talk about the story next? I mean, this one, starting with Sonic, I think has to come in last.
Yeah, because Robotnik wants to become mayor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the plot.
I mean, the, the story, the plot aside, I still feel like they could have did a better job with tying the story together better between the individual playable characters. Like I just I don't know. I can't get over the fact that they when you're playing as Sonic and you have a boss fight against Knuckles and you beat him, and then when you're playing as Knuckles in that same fight, Knuckles comes out as the winner. Like it just I don't know. That's lame
Yeah.
to me. Like
Yeah,
they
But
actually changed the cutscene after that.
yeah, I guess that's
Whereas they
sort
could
of,
have just made it like Sonic won, but then Knuckles went and did his thing. Like
yeah.
you know,
Yeah, we talked about
no,
like
I'm with you. I agree.
how that was a cool aspect with the intersecting stories, but then they didn't quite intersect them properly since they changed them up. So I get that.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's hard because sorry, Ants, because Sonic isn't. It's not as story focused as the other two games, so
yeah,
you have to kind of keep that into account. But like, we keep bringing up how it kind of almost like in some ways felt like a Saturday morning cartoon. But I feel like even in that context, the story wasn't that great to me.
yeah,
So that's what I have
yeah,
to say on that.
yeah. 'Cause those Saturday morning cartoons had some, fun little stories for their characters, and this was just sort of like, like you said, Tom, Sonic fights Robotnik, just with more people next time.
yeah,
All right.
they help Sonic fight Robotnik at the end.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we're gonna talk about the other two story after this quick break. Before the break, we were talking about the story. We kind of put Sonic on the bottom of this, and it's from the get go, and so we were all sort of in agreement with that, and we want to get into earnest now. The other two, as far as the storyline is concerned. Anyone want to start?
I think Shenmue is one of the greatest stories of all time.
I did too.
Shenmue series or just Shenmue, the one game that we're talking about?
The Shenmue series, but it had to start somewhere.
Yeah, I really like Shenmue. I think it was like, I mean, at the end of the day, it's sort of just like a revenge story, but it's everything you have to do to progress in it, I think is really cool. It seems simplistic. Like I'm going to go to the you know sushi place to talk to the guy about barbers.
Chinese people.
Yes, you do. He is looking for Chinese people in this game because the guy that kills his father is believed to be Chinese or in a Chinese gang. But yeah, I just think it melded like a big story with like all of these simple parts really well. Code Veronica is cool too as well. I mean, I think it's sort of one of the better Resident Evils as far as story is concerned.
Yeah, it is cool how they kind of or not introduce, but give you more backstory on some of the on one of the other families that are involved in the creation of Umbrella, and the viruses that are the backbone of the entire series.
Yeah, we talked about how that game really progressed the whole Resident Evil story ethos more so than Resident Evil 2 even.
Yeah, and I don't know if being unrealistic maybe turns people off the story. And I don't mean unrealistic in the sense that there's like viruses creating monsters and things like that, but just like how we talked about like Claire being so adept at, shooting and survival and all that
Yeah,
stuff. I don't know. I think it takes away from the story a little bit. There's sort of
yeah,
some unexplained aspects that are critical to everything.
yeah. I kind of liked how Ryu was pretty, like, sort of pretty common. I mean, he was a pretty good fighter, like probably better than one would suspect for a young guy, but he was trained by a pretty strict father, it looked like from a very young age. So it made sense, especially against some of the the bullying types that were rampant in this game. So that didn't really take me out of it at all from the Shenmue side.
Yeah, all right. I really don't have a lot more to add. I mean,
Yeah, I
I
mean, yeah.
no, I was gonna say I could rank them, but if other people have other things to add, I don't want to jump the gun.
I mean, at the end of the day, both stories are kind of basic. Resident Evil, with the viruses and stuff and the outbreak. I mean, it's cool that Claire's going to look for a brother, but I just found it all a little bit far fetched, within this far fetched setting as it is. But um, just like, yeah, her survival prowess, and then somehow infiltrating this like secret corporation site, and looking for her brother, and all of that. It was a little bit far fetched, but at the end of the day, it was still still fit within Resident Evil well. But I'd have to give the nod to Shenmue.
Me as well.
And me three. I know we like poo-pooed Sonic the story, but like there were some added elements, like how Gamma was
Mhm.
Robotnik's, and then he kind of turned good.
Yeah,
And there was other stuff with like the temple and
right.
whatever.
Knuckles, yeah, with
Yeah,
the and Takal and guarding the Chaos
right,
Emerald.
right, exactly. So
Yeah, they were trying to create like a more in like a, add more depth to the universe with
Yeah,
this game, and they did a decent job with that.
yeah,
yeah.
it'd be
Big,
interesting to see how like they expand on that in Sonic Adventure 2. Maybe one day we'll play.
no. There was also Big the Cat's relationship with the frog. That was worthwhile.
Yeah, but having said all this, I'd still put it last of the three.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. All right, let's talk about gameplay. Pretty important for games, the gameplay. So I love Shenmue. Again, it was very innovative, and I think this is where that game really shines, much more so than the story. Um, there was a genre that the creators of this game were trying to sort of will into existence. I don't remember the exact. It was like the acronym was free, right? Or something like along those lines. Free
I for
reactive eye experience or something
Yeah, something like
was
that.
how
I
I
forget.
translated. But while that really never caught on, I think the whole everything with this game I just thought it was so interesting. It had action components, it had quick time events, it had racing components, but the best part of it was just putting you in this setting, and then it's essentially like real life. Like you walk around a neighborhood, you talk to people to find clues to what you're trying to figure out. You sometimes have to fight people. You have to, you could do things like go into the arcade and play a video game, and walk into restaurants and take a bus to work, and then
Because you're
work.
not having fun playing the video game that you're actually playing. So in the video game, you have to go to the arcade to play a video game.
No, it just adds to the realism, and just
No, it does add to the realism.
I
I
just thought
think
it was so cool. It was just so innovative, and like to me, it still kept me interested to uh, have the story progress and all of that. And I think it did a good job of having making you do all of those things in order to make the story progress. Like at a time you have to go to the arcade to confront someone, or you have to go to the bar to confront someone. So now you know where that place is, and you're conversing with those people, or you're playing the arcade games at the arcade. Um, we mentioned how even like you take on a job to try to figure out who these lower level thugs are that might lead you to the big guy you're trying to chase down. And then what you do, what are essentially mini games, in moving crates from somewhere on the docks to a warehouse, and then but each morning before work you're doing a forklift race. So like all of it like melded together, I think was just great gameplay.
I think a lot of the things that you are liking about the gameplay are the exact same things that I don't like about it. I mean, you mentioned the job, right? The
Mhm.
forklift. Like that was so mundane. Like if that was the game itself, like that wouldn't be a game. And it lasted way too long. I had to do it for 5 days, I guess. And just walking around and talk, like it was very leisurely. A lot of it, walking around and talking to people and getting to know the people who were at the arcade or at the bar. Like it's to me, the game was novel, but that doesn't make it fun.
Hmm. I disagree. For what I just went on about for the
No,
last
no,
few
no. You
minutes
can't
before that.
disagree. You could agree that the game was novel and the game was fun,
Well,
but you
yeah.
can't say the game was fun because it was novel.
No, I don't think that.
Okay.
And for me, Code Veronica, it had good gameplay as well. I mean, it was the standard sort of good classic Resident Evil with action and shooting and inventory management and puzzles and uh, you know, just all of that. I mean, it was very good at it. It was, going back and forth to places that you've been to in order to once you get a key item to progress. So I thought that was good. And we talked about how it was sort of very heavy on that as far as going back and forth was concerned, maybe more so than any other Resident Evil game. And whether you like that or not is obviously a personal preference, but I think it was intending to do it and it did it pretty well.
Yeah, yeah, Resident Evil was, yeah, I feel like it was an advancement on an already great formula that they had for the previous games in the series.
So you felt that was like an improvement to say two?
Not necessarily that it was a better game, but they kept, they kept the formula the same, but um I mean they added some things to vary it up, like the new enemies and the just like the different kind of boss fights, like the Nosferatu one, for example. Like that was
Yeah.
fairly unique for the series.
Yeah, I like the whole. I
The
mean, I guess
Alexia
this.
one too.
Yeah, I guess it kind of goes to the story a little bit, but like I just like the characters in Code Veronica, especially the bad guys and the whole lineage thing with the Ashfords. I think that led to some good gameplay.
Wait, are we still in story or I don't know. I'm not the person to speak to this, but necessarily, but to me, this game felt like a no, not fine, a good Resident Evil game. Like, yeah, Resident Evil's a good series, good
Yeah,
franchise, and this was a good version of it. Like,
yeah, for sure.
I wouldn't say it was the best one. I wouldn't say it was a bad game. So I don't know.
The gameplay in Sonic was, I mean, I don't know. We talked about how like some of those early levels, it just feels like you're pressing up on the controller while Sonic's doing all of this crazy loop the loops and bouncing off bumpers and all of that. So
I don't know. I feel like 7-year-old me in his wildest dreams was like wanted
yeah,
that level in the
Yeah,
so that was awesome to me. Like that's what it
yeah.
was. That's what to me. That's what it was supposed to be. When just talking about like the Sonic sort of levels,
yeah,
Yeah, the
like that.
Sonic levels were fine. I mean, they were, yeah, they were what you would expect it to be. I mean, they were a little. I wouldn't, I would say that they were mostly boring for the most part. But
I agree.
yeah, and
yeah.
then
Well,
like
that's what I mean. It,
the other characters just got redundant. Like I mean, the whole Tails
Yeah, I
scenario
agree.
was redundant.
That was dumb.
Like the Knuckles one was kind of cool, but I don't know. I feel like it was
Yeah.
frustrating at times and not
yeah,
I
really
actually had
that
fun.
fun. It was
I
like,
had fun with that one.
yeah, I mean, it was. I
Where
had
you had
fun
to
at
find the gems.
at times. Like it was,
yeah.
it
It
was a
was
cool
fun at the
idea,
beginning.
but yeah, then it got kind of old. Um, the
Like the
Amy
cat.
one, I mean, the Amy one was fine. I didn't mind that. But again, like I wouldn't say that like I had fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not as
Because
fun as commuting to work.
It was more tolerable. Oh yeah, it really
it
wasn't.
really wasn't.
Yeah, and then yeah, I mean the cat the whole thing was just like anti-fun. So
Yeah, I
like that
like
that
that they.
that that was just such a pointless inclusion in the game.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
just like with like gameplay, I mean, like even if it was a good idea, some of it wasn't executed well. Like even Gamma, we pointed out, was fine Sonic Adventure, but it's just like hold down the action button and you just shoot everything, and it's like there's nothing really to it. It's just like hold down this button and you don't have to dodge anything or ever do anything, and just you get to the end of the level.
Yeah.
I mean,
The game would have been more fun if the levels were a couple of notches more difficult. And we talked about this in the episode too. Like we only tried to complete the levels. We weren't trying to do it within a certain time
yeah.
or having a certain number of coins.
But wouldn't it have been
I
cool
mean
if like
rings.
yeah, that's good. We've made that up, that quote unquote mistake in both Sonic discussion
Uh,
episodes. Um, but wouldn't it have been cool if like Gamma, like it almost turned into like a 2D run and gun, like or something, like I don't know, just like make it like
no,
unique and different, but fun.
no.
I don't know. It's just like
It could have been 3D and still
3D.
fun.
Yeah, I guess, but like it's fine, a 3D shooter. Like make it Doom. Like I don't know. It just seems like it would have been like more fun that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, but that would have been a whole new kind of gameplay system for the team to
Yeah.
develop. So they,
Yeah, I
they
guess.
chose the
Well,
lazy path of
yeah.
least
And that's why the
resistance.
Dreamcast died
Uh-huh.
Maybe.
because of that gamma level.
Yeah. The one sort of fun level.
Yeah.
Um,
So they tried to do a lot of things, and I talked about the Tails like aerial
mhm.
combat
Yeah.
levels, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it.
But like, why couldn't that be more like Star Fox or something?
Yeah.
Like just like an actual fun
Should have been
game.
5 games in one.
Well, I think that could have really made it like if this was going to be like sort of the iconic character main game for this system, like
All the money they spent
I
on Shenmue, they should have spent on this game.
yeah. Well, Shenmue didn't do well because I don't know, people are dumb, but like Sonic didn't do well
Because it's not exciting. Because the commercial
people
wasn't exciting.
well,
That's what we
Sonic did do
discussed.
well, so I can't even say that. I just well didn't do well enough to save the Dreamcast.
Yeah, Sonic was like that superstar, superstar athlete who doesn't elevate his team.
Right, right.
Like Aaron Judge.
No, I don't know about that.
Well,
Now,
in the
now, now
playoffs.
we're throwing shots. I didn't realize we were doing that.
There's some funny Aaron Judge memes because he dropped that ball.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
But anyway,
All right. So what do we do here? Gameplay. I'm going Shenmue. Mine Shenmue, Code Veronica, Sonic.
Mine's Code Veronica, Shenmue, Sonic. I think just from a gameplay perspective, the Resident Evil, it was just more fun in my in my opinion. Shenmue had a lot going on for it in other aspects.
Mm.
That added to the overall greatness of the game. But as far as just gameplay, I'm gonna give the nod to Code Veronica.
I'm also gonna say Code Veronica. Just stuck with a working formula. So like status quo is kind of like all you needed in this category. I mean, in this category of 3 games. But I'm gonna put Sonic second. Yeah, there was fun to be had with the
That's
gamma,
wild.
with
Oh
the
my
gamma.
god.
Just on gameplay. I didn't like walking around talking to people. I liked shooting people with gamma. I liked finding gems with Knuckles. I like running really fast with that Sonic.
You like
But no,
flying really fast with tails.
yeah,
You
that
liked
wasn't that fun.
fishing with Big the Cat.
I liked fishing with Big the Cat. Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
but
Oh
on a more
my
serious,
god.
more serious note. But I know I keep bringing this up, but like, I really, the initial impression was really cool to me. I don't know, playing through those first few levels of Sonic, like that was gaming awesomeness. I thought.
Let me check my notes for our initial impressions category. Oh wait, there is none.
Initial impressions of gameplay I'm talking about. Notice how I didn't say the rock and music.
I don't know. I mean, that first level with Sonic was like the most boring thing ever.
Yeah.
You hold up on the stick the whole time. That's it. That's all you have to do.
But it was awesome.
I mean, it was cool, like the effects, and I liked, the aesthetics of that stage were nice, with like the water and everything, and it was nice and bright.
All right. Well,
So
you gave
Shenmue last.
only if you're Pete. All right, let's what start wrapping this up. Let's talk about replay value we have as a category here.
Our favorite category. Well, so
I
I'm
feel it's
gonna
kind of
say,
easy though, this one.
yeah. I mean, I'm gonna say that the only one that actually has any replay value is gonna be Sonic.
Yeah. Same here with you have a lot. I'm gonna point out that there's a lot of different characters, and then I'm gonna be told that that's not actual replay
That's not
value,
actually
but
replay value.
No,
Yeah.
that's not.
but but
Replaying
there
the levels, which is actual replay value to get higher scores
right,
and like get the emblems and stuff like that is
right.
what.
How do you feel about Shenmue? Like, 'cause there's a lot of optional events or whatever, like cutscenes, whatever you want to call them, that you may not trigger, based on certain.
I wouldn't say there's a lot, but there are a few.
Okay, there's
Yeah.
some.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know
I
if
think
that's
if you really want to explore, you can talk to every shop owner and every person, and like you don't need to do that for the game, but um could be
yeah,
interesting.
it's
And
an
again,
interesting point.
I think the world is so interesting that there are some people that would want to do that. Maybe not you, but but
Yes, people. Well, we talk about this a lot too, right? If I didn't enjoy the game, I'm not going to replay it. But people who did enjoy the game, it's because of the novelty. You're right. That is something that I think would entice the player to play again. And now I played through it. I played through the story. Now let me really do it again and explore in every
Mhm.
nook and cranny. And
yeah.
so I could see that.
That's all to say for me that I would pick Sonic first, Shenmue second, and Code Veronica third. I mean, I think you're
Yeah.
right. I think it's pretty
But
obvious that
do you
Sonic
guys
is.
know in Code Veronica if there was like, after you beat it, if you get machine gun or something, or is that
Uh,
more prevalent in newer games?
I'm
Like,
pretty sure they had, you know, based on your rank, you get,
yeah, based on your rank, I think you're right.
a new weapon,
Yeah. So,
or
I
like
mean, it's not
unlimited
something that
ammo or something
motivates
like that.
me. Yeah, it's not
Now,
something that motivates me, but a lot of people.
in Code Veronica X, they did have that optional, or I think you unlock the mode after you finish the game once,
Mhm. What's
where
that?
you just
Well,
like control a character and you're basically running through. I think I'm not sure if they're randomly generated, but the rooms that you're running through aren't actually how they are connected in the actual game. So it's just
Mm.
kind of like a random set of rooms that you're going through and you're killing all the enemies.
and you're
I mean,
just trying to see how many you could kill before you die, or
no, you eventually get to an end point where you fight a boss. But
oh, okay.
there's four characters: Chris, Claire, Steve, and Wesker.
Oh yeah, there is that extra mode. Yep. Yeah, it's sort of like a gauntlet kind of a thing.
Yeah, yeah. And so,
Yeah,
like,
that's
if
true.
you're into
That's
getting high scores on that,
yeah.
that could be something you replay.
Right. There is that mode, and I'll give it credit for that. But I don't think my ranking changes even with the discussion of that for Code Veronica.
Yeah, and then in Shenmue, I don't know if it's just for completing the game, but I think you unlock that like 70-man battle. Remember that? Yeah, that
Hmm.
then you
Yeah,
can
yeah, yeah,
replay that if you want. But
yeah. And the Dreamcast version did come with the Shenmue Passport, which had like extra features on it, and stuff. So
were those like playable features, or
I
I
don't
don't remember.
necessarily think so, but I mean, you are popping in a Shenmue related disc again in that instance. So
Are really stretching the
Yeah,
meaning here. Yeah, but also in Shenmue they had some like I guess side quests, right? Like I always remember the one. It's like right at the beginning of the game. There's an old lady looking for a
yeah,
house.
right,
It's like you don't like have to do that. You don't have to help her find it.
right.
But
Then there's also like an unlockable scene with Nozomi. I think you have to get it done before Christmas, but like one day when you're coming back from somewhere at night, if it's after 7 p.m., she's like sitting in a park, and if you go to that park, you'll have a scene with her. That's also not like required to progress the story, and you could actually be unlocked out of it. So
Yeah. Yeah. So these are some of the like optional events that I was mentioning. So
Yeah.
there's something there. There's at least something there in all these games, in terms of replay value. But I think we all agree. I agree. Sonic is going to be first.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Should we do conclusions? Pick a winner and a runner-up. All right.
I
How are we
like the
going to do
sound of
this?
that.
Just sort
Go
of like
ahead.
initially after running through these categories, despite the last one, Sonic winning on replay value, I feel like they've come, or that game has come in last or at best second in almost every other category. I mean, there was music, sound, and replay value where it kind of shone. And those are important, but I mean, I don't think you could win a category like this when you lose in gameplay, lose in story, don't win in graphics. Um,
All right.
don't
Well, we'll individually be the judge of that.
well, well, we have to collectively pick one. So I'm just saying what I observed. The other
Oh,
two are closer. To me, fine, I'll give my personal opinion. To me, Shenmue has to come out on top. I mean, to me, it had just the innovative gameplay, a very intriguing story, and the gameplay within to achieve the progress of that story. Um, Controls, it wasn't great, but neither were the other two games. Graphics were very good in my opinion as far as the environment, particularly, and in a lot of the character choices and designs. Um, yeah, so for me, it's a Shenmue, Code Veronica, Sonic Adventure line.
all right. Allow me to go next. For me personally, Shenmue is clearly last. I mean, I had the last in the gameplay
What?
and the controls, and I mean, I get it. I like its novelty, but
This is unfathomable.
it's just not for me. It's not for everyone. So I think it's a very polarizing game. So that's last for me. The other two is also pretty clear for me, actually. So Resident Evil, it just
Wait,
it
no,
just
no.
Code Veronica. It felt like
By God, don't
just
do
felt like
it.
it just felt like a game we've all played before, and it was a fine game. It was okay. Like it was actually a little too hard for me, in my opinion. And I just found myself being frustrated a lot more times than I was having fun. So therefore, I have to put it second.
No,
And that
no.
makes my winner
That's
Sonic.
wild.
I mean, if you're a 90s kid and you haven't played Sonic, like you have to at least pop in the disc and give it a whirl. I'm not saying you have to play through the whole game, but
This seems inconsistent to your recommendation from the episode, but okay.
and it's a very casual game, like because it's quite simple. So I didn't find myself having a lot of fun playing this game either. But it at least kept you guessing, now you're doing Knuckles scavenger hunt. Now you're blasting things with Gamma. So I didn't really like any of these three games, but for me, Sonic is number one.
Is the lesser of three evils for you?
Yes, very much so.
All right, Tom.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sonic is going last for me. I think it's insulting to even consider putting that above either of these other two games.
Very much so.
I'm
Um,
gonna I'm gonna make a game where you just walk around, talk to people, and that's gonna be better than Sonic,
yeah,
apparently.
but I agree with what you said about Shenmue being polarizing because I feel like Shenmue was, I really like the game, but I can see people not liking it or thinking it's boring or, something like that. I think, there are some people who, really like the challenge aspect of a game or, something like that. And Shenmue wasn't really challenging. So, like, if you're, this person who, wants to get the high score on Donkey Kong and that's like, what you play games for, Shenmue's not really going to do anything for you. But on the other hand, if you're someone who likes a story and wants to play out that story and, an engaging environment and, with interesting characters, which I feel like a lot of modern gamers are in that category, at least the ones who play single player games. So I think that's going to be really appealing to those people.
If I like stories, I'll read books.
Yeah, see, I don't think a lot of gamers have that attitude anymore.
And I think the line is, I'll read a book.
That's a very 1980s opinion, I feel. But anyway, and then so this brings me to Code Veronica, which I think kind of combines the two in a way where it provides a challenge, very legitimate challenge. I think it's a pretty difficult game, as evidenced by my F+ ranking. So yeah, and then it also has the deep story and the characters, which some you love, some you hate. And it's just again, not everyone's gonna find it the most fun game, but I think it has enough action there and puzzles there where there's definitely fun to be had. So I'm going with that as my number one, then Shenmue, and then Sonic.
And there you have it.
Resident Evil. Hold on. Are we gonna?
No, I mean, why can't you calculate this as we're going?
We have to tally.
If you tally, okay. So,
all right. So I had Sonic first.
The tally is that Code Veronica won, Shenmue was in second, and Sonic is in third. Sonic had 2 third-place finishes and a first.
Yeah.
Code Veronica had 2 seconds and a first, and Shenmue had a 1, 2, and a 3.
Okay, very good. Let's share that with the audience.
I just said it.
Perfect.
And the total of that is that Code Veronica is our winner of this Brodown episode of games that initially released on the Sega Dreamcast, with Shenmue coming in second and Sonic Adventure bringing up the rear. Thank you everyone for listening to our Brodown episode. You can catch us on Instagram and X at Bros Boss Battles. That's BROS Boss Battles. On our YouTube page of the same handle, our website, brothersandbossbattles.com, or wherever you get this podcast. Next episode, we will be starting a new category. Stay tuned to see what it is. Until then, take care, everyone.